Welcome back to the Nikki Clarke Show. My name is Nikki Clarke, and I am so excited to be back with yet another stellar interview. The Nikki Clarke Show has been going on for 17 years, transforming lives one story at a time. And I am so excited to introduce to you another incredible person, a mover and shaker in her community. So I would love to introduce you to Ambassador Dr. Iris Zimza Nozizwe Mhlanga, a renowned humanitarian, entrepreneur, and diplomat whose life's work is rooted in service, advocacy, and empowerment. And born into a family of philanthropists in Zimbabwe, Nozizwe's passion for community upliftment was shaped early on by parents who broke barriers and gave back selflessly. And in 2018, she founded the Nozizwe Mother of Nations Trust, an organization that now feeds over 1,200 children daily. And she also supports the education of more than 1,000 orphans and delivers critical medical and psychosocial services to vulnerable communities. So beyond her community or humanitarian work, Ambassador Dr. Mhlanga serves as the regional director of the World Organization of Ambassadors, overseeing Zimbabwe and South Africa, and represents her country on international platforms advocating for women's empowerment, education, and sustainable development. Ambassador Dr. Iris, please welcome to the Nikki Clarke Show. It's such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here with you.
Awesome. I really appreciate your time. So let's get into it. You were raised in a family deeply committed to philanthropy. So how did your parents' example shape your understanding of service and leadership?
Well, I'm going to tell you a little story. My father was a president of a football team here in Zimbabwe. It's called the Highlanders Football Club. And he was a local businessman and used his money to care for orphans, care for his community. He took money out of his pocket to look after vulnerable communities. And he did that for many years, in the background without people knowing this. And how that came about and came to light was after his passing in 2016, when we were at the reading of his will. And my siblings and I were sitting there, and the lawyers told us the story after reading his will. And that's where everything came to light, everything my father had done, out of the public eye, everything he had done for family, extended family, in-laws, the community in general. And that's where I thought, wow, there's a lot that I didn't know about my father. And that's when I truly found out about all the wonderful things that he did so selflessly, and without anyone knowing. It was just mind blowing. At the same time, we were mourning the loss of our father, but hearing such lovely things about him and hearing about all the things that he did really touched me and really made me think, you never really know someone. And sometimes, what they did or their character or some things come to light later in life. And I was
Absolutely.
just sad that, I couldn't even thank him or say, job well done. The things were just mind blowing. And from there, I didn't expect to continue, with whatever he was doing. I just thought, it's a reading of his will. It's going to be a once off, I'm going to just help someone and that's the end of it. And it didn't turn out that way. It, yeah.
Not
Then,
that way.
yeah,
It's, I would guess then that would be the defining moment for you when you
exactly.
realized that humanitarian work was your life's calling, not just a
Yeah.
passion. You describe that feeling?
Yeah, it was something weird. Let me put it that way. I would say it was a weird feeling because I was named Nozizwe. Nozizwe in my language means mother of nations. And growing up, yeah, growing up, I was always playing the mother role. I was, to younger kids in school, younger kids in my neighborhood, I was always looking after other people from a young age. And then I thought to myself, Nozizwe it's a name that I hated until adulthood, until it really clicked, the real meaning behind it. And after my father's passing, that's when it made even more sense when I found out that he had named me after a great aunt who lived in Mozambique, who was a traditional healer and a healer of hearts. She looked after the vulnerable communities in Mozambique and crossing over into Zimbabwe, exactly the same thing I'm doing now. And from a
Mm,
young age, I guess unfortunately, he's not here to answer for himself, but from a young age, I think he saw the resemblance between me and his great aunt because he named me after her.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I turned out in later years to be exactly like her, looking after those who have no voice and speaking up for those who need someone, to be a sister, to be a guardian to them. So as an adult, I've kind of stepped into that mother role again, which is my
Yes,
name. Yeah.
is your name and which is your calling. So
Yeah.
you founded the Nazizwe Mother of Nations Trust in 2018.
hmm
And what need were you seeing in your community that compelled you to act?
I was going through a lot at the time. It was 2 years after my father's passing, and someone in my neighborhood invited me to a local church and said,
Mm,
"You need a pick me up. You need the word. You need God." I was going through depression. I was going through the works. And I decided to go along with my neighbors to this church. And there was a man of God who was preaching at the time, and he kept looking at me. And I thought, this is weird. He was from Ghana. And then he stepped towards me and he called me. He called me out in front of everyone and said, "Mother of Nations, please stand up." And there was me looking around like,
what's that?
what? Mother of Nations. And yeah, so I knew the translation of my name, but I didn't think a total stranger would say that to me. And I stood up. And then he said to me, "I'm praying for you and I'm seeing you being a mother figure. How many children do you have?" And I said, "I've got two." He says, "No, ma'am, you do not have two. I see you having more than 1,200 children." And I thought, oh my word, this man has lost his marbles or something. And he continued, he told me a whole long story. And then he described my neighborhood and everything about me while he was praying in front of everyone. This crowd had gathered now. And they were all looking at me, giving me the stank eye and the works. And he said, "You're going to go home. You're going to see a homeless man. And I want you to help that man." And I said, "You know what, Pastor, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm always feeding people. I'm
Mm,
always stopping. I'm always feeding someone. I'm always giving away clothes. Look, I've lost my shoes even. I've given them away to some woman outside." And he laughed and he said, "Do you want to bet?" And then he said, "I see you writing books. I see you on TV." He told me a whole lot of things. And I thought, no way. There's no way any of this would come true. And a few days later, I met the homeless man. So that's how I started. I burst into tears when I met this man, and I thought, what? And I decided to do as I was told. And I had gone to the shopping mall with my daughter, and I told my daughter the story. And my daughter was like, "Mom, don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass me. You're already crying." So,
mm.
yeah, I tried to keep my composure with my daughter saying, "Please don't embarrass me." And I
Oh,
fed this man. He was falling over, slumped over on his wheelchair. And I went to him, remembering what was told to me. I went to him, and everyone was saying, "No, don't touch him. You'll get sick. He's got germs. Don't go there." And I went there and I fed him. made friends with him, took him to the hospital. I don't know why I did that, but I asked the lawyers for money. I asked people for money, took him to the hospital, and we became friends. Then I started feeding him every day. I'd cook supper for my kids and I and cook a little extra for him. When he was better, he went and got other homeless people and said, "Hey, want you to come and see my mother." And the other homeless people came to my shopping mall and they expected to see some elderly lady, and they couldn't believe the old man was saying I was his mother. So that's how it continued. I started feeding one person, it jumped to five. Then from five, it went to 25. I went back to the family lawyers and I said, I've run out of money, you know, what do we do? And then
Mm-hmm.
the lawyers were like, okay, we didn't think you were going to take it that far. So why don't we register you as an organization, to avoid the red tape and everything because your crowd is getting bigger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had no idea I would be doing what I do now at the time. I was going through a lot. Then my daughter went into a coma. My son wasn't too well. And then here's me now running this thing and feeding homeless people, and I know nothing about running charities or anything like that.
Yes.
So, in the midst of everything, I decided to go back to school. I studied philanthropy and I started studying everything else. And that's how I've continued over the years. If there's something that I need to know about the business of helping people, the business side, I've gone back to school and I've learned it. And I've continued like that since 2018.
I love that. You're a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But,
Yeah.
what keeps you motivated during challenging seasons?
There are so many times I've wanted to give up. There's so many times I've wanted to give up. The first time was 2021. Um, During COVID, actually, I just wanted to give up. A lot was happening, a lot of people were dying, family members and things like that. And I thought to myself, how can I be there for others when I'm struggling emotionally, mentally, physically? I got sick at one point. My daughter was in a coma, and I couldn't figure out how to continue. But people were like, you can do it, you can do it. My neighbors are my cheerleaders, and they kept cheering me on, saying, no, 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 don't give up. You can do it, you can do it. And I said, I don't know how long this is going to run for. I don't know what it is. I don't know anything about anything. I don't know what I'm doing. All I'm doing is leading with my heart,
Mm-hmm.
doing things from the heart. I don't know anything about the business side of things. And then the lawyers got back to me and said, no, don't worry about that. We'll get you an accountant. We'll get you someone to teach you the business side of things. And that's how we that's how we continued with the neighbors and my whole community cheering me on.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
As the regional director for the World Organization of Ambassadors, how do you
Mhm.
balance diplomacy with grassroots community service?
I've found a way to blend in all my responsibilities, my international responsibilities and my local responsibilities. I found a way of handling that and blending the two so that the two are interlinked somewhat. So most of the time I'm working from a rubbish dump, and that's where one of the soup kitchens is where we feed people. It's right inside a rubbish dump. You're in
Mm.
another planet when you're in there and you forget about everything. So as an ambassador with the World Organization of Ambassadors, I use my diplomacy skills. I use my community actually as my subjects, or I don't want to say guinea pigs, but my subjects, my learning center. So I
Mm-hmm.
use my international relations and the way I communicate with my community as a way of upping my game, internationally, regionally, and that's how I've been able to balance things. So I'm
Excellent.
not, I'm a mother, I'm an ambassador, I wear many hats. But I found a way over time to blend all of them and keep going from there and learning and growing.
Learning and growing.
Yeah.
Wonderful. As a woman leader and global advocate, what message do you have for women who want to lead but feel limited by circumstance?
As I felt limited by circumstances as well, now that I'm into it and I see that, sometimes it's all in your head. Sometimes it's all in your head. The best way to do that would be to jump right in. Jump right in, forget about being scared. We girls are able to do anything that we put our minds to. If we
Yes,
can all shave our eyebrows off and draw them back on, shave our heads, and then put a weave on, us girls can do anything that we can put our minds to. So, limiting beliefs are nothing, and nothing. That's what I would say. I'd say go for it and don't be scared.
go for it. I
Yeah,
love that.
go.
I'm all
Yeah,
about going for it for sure.
yeah, yeah.
So our closing question, Ambassador Dr. Aris, if you could leave our audience with one
Hmm.
reminder or call to action, something they
Hmm.
can do today to make a difference, what would it
Hmm.
be?
For women in particular, because I'm big about empowering women, it gets lonely at the top. So if you're going up the ladder, make sure you take someone with you and make sure that other person brings someone else with you up that ladder. So for me, my personal message to women in particular, but it applies to anybody, be your sister's keeper, your brother's keeper, your neighbor, your friend, or whatever is not your competition. That's your sister, that's your brother, no matter where they're coming from, no matter what rubbish dump or whatever heap they're coming from under. That's your brother, that's your sister. You're in this journey called life together, and you're not out there to compete with anyone. You compete with yourself, not your neighbor, not your next person. Just make sure that you bring someone else with you because it does get lonely at the top. But if there's someone like-minded like you, the more the merrier, and the more people you can reach out to and inspire.
I love that. Lift everyone up, pull them up with
Yeah,
you. Thank you so much for
yeah,
that. And
yeah.
Ambassador Dr. Iris, how can people reach out to you on social media? Do you have a website or social media handles?
We are on Facebook and Instagram. On Facebook, my personal page is Ambassador Iris Nozizwe Mhlanga. And then my social media for Facebook for our charity page is Nozizwe Mother of Nations Trust. Instagram, we are at Nozizwe Trust. And my personal page is at Miss Iris ZN. That's Instagram. We're available on X, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you can find us. Yeah, I've got a
Instagram.
personal account on all platforms and a business account on all platforms.
Excellent. And I know that we're following each other on
Yeah,
Instagram.
yes,
I
yes, yes,
appreciate
yes.
you. Thank you so much for that. Well,
Yeah,
thank you, Ambassador Dr. Iris Nozizwe Mhlanga, for your
thank
powerful work,
you.
passion, and your commitment to uplifting communities across Zimbabwe and beyond. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning to the Nikki Clarke Show. Remember, when purpose meets action,
Hmm.
transformation is inevitable. Thank you again,
Yeah,
Dr. Ambassador Iris. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. God
And
bless.
you too.